Some 600 million people will still be living in extreme poverty beyond 2030. And as the report shows, finance is the crux of the problem. It is really a pleasure to present the 2024 Financing for Sustainable Development report. The report is truly the international system speaking with one voice, the result of collaboration between more than 60 international agencies through the Interagency Task Force on Financing for Development. This kind of cooperation for us is vital. And because of this, the report sets out we face what I think we can say is a serious development crisis, a crisis with finance at its heart that requires an immense amount of international effort to try to turn it around. That effort's got to start now, or it is for many, many countries game over. There are just 6 years to go till 2030. Multiple global shocks mean the Sustainable Development Goals are now worryingly off track. At our current rate, we estimate some 600 million people will still be living in extreme poverty beyond 2030. And as the report shows, finance is the crux of the problem. First, there's a major financing gap. Task Force members have estimated an additional $4 trillion will be invested every year to 2030 to have a chance of achieving the SDGs. And this is up from an investment gap of around $2.5 trillion a year before the COVID pandemic. Second, developing countries have no space to maneuver. Their borrowing costs are high. The 3.3 billion people, around 40% of humanity, are living in countries that are spending more on interest payments than on health or education. In 25 developing countries, more than a fifth of tax revenue goes on servicing external debt. And as countries struggle to service their external debts, attention naturally turns to efforts to increase domestic tax revenues. But in an increasingly digital, globalized economy, resource mobilization is really hamstrung without intensive and inclusive international cooperation to define how to uphold tax norms. And this is evidenced by the ongoing presence of tax havens and illicit financial flows. On the third issue, the global economy is not supporting investment and development as it should. Average growth rates have steadily declined over the last 25 years, from over 6% before the global financial crisis to around 4% today. Developing country exports have slowed too. Between 2000 and 2008, they grew 15%. Since then, they've increased just 3%. And domestic policies are also blocking progress. Fossil fuel subsidies rose to a new high of over $7 trillion in 2022. So we urgently need a surge of investment for our sustainable development agenda. But as the report sets out, that relies on fundamental shifts in the global economy and in the public sector leadership. And it urges action in 3 critical areas to make that a reality. First, scaling up public and private investment in the SDGs themselves. This is why reforms to the development bank system are so important, with more capital and multilateral and national development banks can provide hundreds of billions in new resources for SDG investment, and all of this at more affordable rates. Donors also need to make good on commitments on ODA and climate finance. In 2022, only 4 countries, Germany, Luxembourg, Norway, and Sweden, met or exceeded the 0.7% goal. That's got to change. Official development assistance has increased, but increasingly it's being spent within the borders of donor countries. It's not supporting many of our developing countries, and history has witnessed to the powerful role external public financing can play to enable countries to recover from wars or other crises. Such support, we still underscore, it's not charity, it's investment in our shared future on one planet. And public finance is also critical for bringing the cost of capital down and thereby leveraging private investment. And this is what we're calling blended finance. We need public money to incentivize private investment that has a real and veritable impact on sustainable development. Private finance also brings technology and entrepreneurship, which are key to any society's development, and we can see that moving in many of our emerging economies. Second, we must remake the international financial architecture. You've heard the SG say this a lot, and it is a feature of the Summit of the Future. Our current system, set up in 1944, no longer fit for purpose. I think most people and things at 75 years would have lost their shelf life. Yet it's still determining the conditions for investment. So we have to increase the voice of developing countries in global economic governance and improve the architecture for the debt crisis resolution. Third, leaders must close the credibility gaps. Countries, especially the G20, have made many promises on global governance reform, on aid delivery, and on introducing domestic reforms to tackle corruption and inequality, and that includes gender inequality. Yet progress has been insufficient, and as a result, faith has been eroded in multilateralism, and that really does threaten us all. Geo-economic fragmentation imposes significant costs, and inaction on global challenges means a much more dangerous and less prosperous future for us all. And we're seeing those frustrations where stability, we've been unable to keep that, and conflicts are just continuously multiplying in many of the countries that we're serving. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the title of this year's report is Finance.